Colleagues, I'd like to welcome you to the first ever National EIS webinar for probationers. I'm David Barsi. I work for the EIS. I was formerly a school teacher for 15 years. I'll introduce my panel in a moment. We've got a great panel of 3 EIS members for us. Some housekeeping rules, if I can start, please. We've got over 300 members registered for WebEx, and we're also live streaming. We're recording the webinar so that it can be placed as a resource on our website. We'll be taking questions after the panelists have spoken. If you do not wish to have your name associated with a question, please make sure that you write that when you write out your question in the chat function. I've got colleagues from the EIS on the WebEx, and we've got EIS colleagues on the Facebook too. Facebook is also, we'll be also taking questions from people who are watching this webinar from the Facebook to the panel as well. This is a national event. It's really taking place as a webinar. We recognise that what we are doing within local associations, within schools, is a little bit restricted due to the pandemic, but we would encourage you all to engage with your school reps and with your local association secretaries after this seminar is finished. We've got 3 panelists for you, long-serving EIS members and representatives. So I'm going to ask each one of them, I'll introduce them and ask each one of them to speak to you for about 5 to 10 minutes about different aspects of your probationary year, and also what the EIS does to help and support you during your probationary year. After all 3 speakers have finished, we will enter into the question and answer session. So our first panelist is Susan Quinn. Susan is an EIS member who is the convener of the EIS Education Committee. This is the committee that oversees all the EIS work on engagement, the curricula, the GTCS, and so forth. Curriculum for Excellence, SQA, assessment, many other things too. Susan is also the local association secretary for the Glasgow Association, and therefore has a lot of experience in dealing and supporting with members too. Susan is here to speak mainly about the national aspects of the probationer scheme and the EIS. And so without further ado, I pass you over to Susan.
Thanks, David, and welcome, colleagues, to this event. I hope it finds you well and coping with the first few weeks in your induction year. Slightly different for you than from many people in the past, but many similarities around the things that you'll be expected to do and the supports that will be available for you. For teachers, there are a range of sources that national sources that are crucial to you during your career, and actually very often people don't really think about them in their day-to-day work. But if you get into them early on, then they're going to be something that's going to be a key aspect of advice to you throughout your career, and the EIS is part of that. So we would always encourage probationer members and those in their induction year, those who are in the flexible route, to get involved in the local EIS as early as possible, to get active and to use that as a support platform for them, and for them to then also influence what happens in the EIS. Because the EIS is a lay member-led organisation. It's not without any particular consideration that it's lay members that are speaking to you this evening rather than paid officials of the Institute. It's because the lay members in the organisation are crucial to our work, and we need new lay members to come through and to get involved in what we're doing and to work with their colleagues in schools. We're not expecting you to become a rep tomorrow, but hopefully some of you will become reps of the future and get involved with us. Beyond the EIS, though, there are two areas of your life that are going to be most important to you during your induction year and your probationary period, and beyond that. The first of these is the Scottish Negotiating Committee for Teachers, the SNCT, as it's known colloquially, and this is the body which defines the terms and conditions under which teachers and work within the Scottish system. It's a tripartite body which has Scottish Government, local authorities as the employers, and the trade unions, predominantly the EIS, where they meet and decide and negotiate on all aspects of your working life. And it's really crucial that you're aware of this early doors, that you give some consideration to that, and potentially as part of your professional learning during your induction year, to get involved and get looking at and considering what the SNCT can do for you and what it does for everybody, because it lays out matters that relate to your sick leave, your holiday entitlement, your working conditions, working week, leave arrangements, family leave, career breaks, everything at all to do with your that's what we class as our kind of overarching contract of employment. It's the area that is most important to you in terms of those sides of things. And from the SNCT, there are a number of devolved matters which are then taken forward at the local negotiating committee, and Andreen will cover those, some of that work and some of that when she talks to you about the role of the local association, and Megan too when she's speaking about the role, because all of these things are tied up very tightly. The induction year and the process around probation comes from SNCT and is worked on with the GTCS, and the GTCS is the other major stakeholder who will have an influence in your careers and your working life. You're already well aware of their influence in your life, because as student teachers, you were working towards the standard for provisional registration, and the GTCS have since then placed you in your local authorities to complete your induction year. And the GTCS are the regulatory body for the profession, and the group who will look to make sure that those who are in the profession are held to the highest of standards. And the EIS, as the main teaching union in the country, have a significant role in the work of the GTCS. Wherever we work in the Education Committee, as David says, that I convene, will work with the GTCS around revisions of the standards, looking at the different aspects of that. We also, in our other areas of our work in the Employment Relations Committee and salaries, will work with GTCS around aspects to do with fitness to teach, and where there are concerns around that. And our Employment Relations Department in particular will provide support, sadly, for some members who find themselves at the sharp end of what the GTCS are looking for. But in terms of your particular first year in teaching, the GTCS's role is to finally sign you off at the end of the year to say that you've achieved the standard for full registration. They have set out nationally the criteria and guidelines by which local authorities have got to support you and in your schools to demonstrate that you've achieved the standard for full registration. There is a body of evidence that's required to be gained around that, and you will work hopefully successfully with your schools to achieve that during the course of the year. As I say, the EIS is a lay member-led organisation, and locally and nationally we're always looking for people to get involved with us, who bring a variety of experiences to the organisation and to our work. And it's really important that we look to get new members involved and that you come on board with that. Nationally, we are working, and you'll see the work that we're doing on our websites, on social media and the like. But there's always a lot more going on in the background, and I would encourage you during this induction year to get involved and to take a look at that particular website to see what's there and what resources are on offer, because nationally we will offer a wide range of opportunities for you that as probationers you can get involved in, and will enhance your professional learning, not just for this year, but for beyond. And hopefully that's given you an insight into what we do nationally, and the two key stakeholders that will be a big part to play, not quite from cradle to grave in terms of your teaching career, but from the beginning till whenever they finally release you back into the wilds at your retirement point. These are going to be the organisations that will have the biggest influence on you. I'll stop there and let others have a speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. I'd like to pass over now to Andreen Banford. Andreen is a serving teacher in Eastern Bartonshire. She's the local association secretary for Eastern Bartonshire. She therefore engages with Eastern Bartonshire Council on behalf of the Institute, and she's here to talk about the local authority level and local association level engagement with probationers.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. So my name is Andreen Bamford, and as David said, I am the local association secretary for Eastern Bartonshire. So what does that actually mean? What is a local association secretary? Well, when you join the EIS, you are, as Susan was talking about there, part of the national body, but also you are also joining a local association, and the local associations correspond with the 32 councils in Scotland. So Eastern Bartonshire is a local association, Glasgow is a local association, North Lanarkshire, South Lanarkshire, Stirling. You're also, so when you eventually start paying subs to the EIS, some of your subs go to the national body, some of them go to the local body, and so that local body is its own little sort of self-serving self-governed association in its own right, as well as being part of the national body. So, as Susan mentioned, our terms and conditions mainly come from the SNCT handbook, right? SNCT agreement, but there are certain devolved matters that come down to a local agreement. So that would be things like appointment procedures, disciplinary and grievance, special leave, and these are agreed through the LNCT, the Local Negotiating Committee of Teachers, and most EISLA secretaries are the joint secretary of the LNCT, and we are heavily involved in negotiating and agreeing the different policies and procedures that affect the daily lives of teachers in each local association or each council. So each local association has an LA secretary then who represents all the members of the LA. Each school within the LA is its own branch. You should have its own rep. And the typical protocol that you'll find is that when you go to schools, if you have any sort of issue, you'd flag that up to your rep. Your rep, if it's serious enough, your rep needs further advice or further information, they would come to me, the LA secretary, and then if I need further support, there are people in the EIS national body, local officers and national officers that I can go to for support. So how does an LA secretary support members then? Well, basically, as I said, through the LNCT, we represent your views. We take forward your concerns, your views. We represent you as teachers when we go to the LNCT to make to negotiate procedures and policies and so on your behalf. But also at a national level, we all local associations are represented on the EIS Council. The EIS Council is the national body's main decision-making tool, and therefore, as a local association secretary, when I go to council, I'm very aware that I am not just representing myself, although I am representing myself, but I'm also aware that I am trying to make sure that the views of Eastern Bartonshire teachers are heard at council, and I get a chance to ask the questions or indeed feedback information that I get from council to the members in East Dunbartonshire. So we are representing you at a local level and a national level. And as well as that, the LA Secretary is there just to provide, advice, support to you as members, to reps. We are there, and more maybe to represent members in more serious situations like disciplinary hearings, fact findings, grievances, or if you need a wellbeing support meeting and it's a bit more complicated. You might wish the support of an LA secretary rather than your school rep. So some of the common issues that come my way, I just thought I'd just give a quick overview. I know some of them will probably come up through the questions, but some of the things that come to me from probationers quite typically are usually issues to do with mentors. If you don't feel you get the support you need, if you don't feel that you're getting on too well with your mentor, this is definitely something that you should seek advice on and don't sit on it. Make sure you speak to your rep. And if you feel you need more support, get in touch with your LA secretary. So get to know who your LA secretary is. And if you're getting a cause for concern in your school, that's absolutely something that you need to seek support about that as soon as you can. And again, get in touch with your rep, with your LA secretary. Contractual issues. As a probationer, your contract, you should not be exceeding 18.5 hours of class contact a week. And we all know that sometimes a bit of pressure can be put on probationers to do that, to go the extra mile. So if you feel that is the case, and if you feel that you're being put under too much pressure, then seek support. Don't suffer in silence. Don't just assume that's what happens. Make sure you get support. We're also here to help you with any issues regarding pay. When you start working, when you finish your probationary year, you might have been placed on the wrong scale, or you might feel that you're awarded additional points on the pay scale because of previous work you've done. Again, that's something that you'll need to. It's probably your LA secretary who's going to help you with that, to help you get the right point in the salary scale. And then when you finish your probation, obviously you will be seeking employment, and it's really, really important that you have all the right information when it comes to getting a letter of engagement, whether it's a temporary contract you're in or a permanent contract. It's really important that you don't. What happened there during the lockdown was that we discovered that there was a lot of people who were actually in temporary contracts, but they were being treated like they were supply. Supply only lasts for 2 days. Now, I don't want to bombard you with a lot of information. I'm sure that'll all come to you. But basically, making sure you've got the right contract for the work you start with is really, really important. And that is definitely something to contact your LA secretary about if you get any questions. COVID, health and safety is a massive part of school. Again, you should have seen your school's risk assessment. You should know all about it. You also should have everything you need in your school to support you. You should have you should have hand sanitizer and all the cleaning equipment that you could need. And again, if there's any issues, you must flag that up as soon as you can with your rep. Well, I just want to finish just by saying, again, like Susan said, I'm always looking for people to get involved. For new people to come forward and get involved in the committee of management. Each local association, we have what we call, some local associations call it their executive. We call it our committee of management here in East Dunbartonshire. It's a group of activists who we meet once a month, and I report to them, about all the things that we've been doing, and we can make decisions and take on motions for East Dunbartonshire. If that's something that interests you, that you'd like to become more involved, then I'm sure your LA secretary would love to hear from you. Your rep would love to hear from you. And all I can say is, I'm sure Megan will say more about this, but just get involved. Don't suffer in silence. Don't ask for help if you need it. Know who it is that you need to ask for help from, and enjoy your year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreen. Our final panellist is Megan McCausland. Being a Welsh person, I say Megan, but I think most of you say Megan here in Scotland. So Megan is an EIS activist in a North Lanarkshire school. a long-serving activist, but she's also a mentor to probationers at her school. So Megan is here to talk about her experiences in school and how this may help and advise probationers in school. Megan, over to you.
Hi everyone. Thanks for coming along tonight and listening in. So as David said, I'm going to give a wee bit of a perspective from a mentor point of view, but also as a probationer. I was a North Lanarkshire probationer as well and came through and got active with the EIS quite quickly. So you, both Andreen and Susan, both spoke about the kind of what I'm kind of calling the hierarchy of support. So as a probationer, you have your mentor in school, you will have a team around you depending on the size of the school. You may have a stage partner, your head teachers there, your principal teachers there, but there's also every local authority should have a probation support team that you could also go to. All of these people are there to give you the support that you need. They are there to ask all of the questions. Now, that's one thing that I find, that you will have a lot of questions and these people are here to help you and to answer them. And there is no such thing as a silly question, because if it's in your head and you need that answer, then you need to ask it. You need to get it out there. You need to ask it. Now, the EIS is there to support you, your rep in the school. If you're lucky and your school has a rep, the local association secretaries are there as well. But go and speak to your mentor. Find, I read a blog a few years ago, find your marigolds, find the people on the staff who will answer the questions that you have and the people that you're comfortable with. Because if they don't know the answers, they will signpost you to the right people. They'll say, maybe you should speak to your mentor about that. Or why don't you get in touch with a rep? Why don't you get in touch with a local association secretary? But the bottom line is, you never ever have to feel like you're on your own as a probationer. There is a whole host of people out there who are just willing to help. You can find, if you do need to get in touch with the EIS and you don't have a rep in your school, the website will direct you to the appropriate people. Membership services will direct you to the appropriate people, but you can also find your local association secretary's email addresses and get in touch that way. So from your mentor, what can you expect? One, you can expect them to answer your questions. You can expect them to follow whatever local authority guidelines there are and to not ask you to go beyond that. Now, there can be sometimes where you may be asked to, but your mentor should be there supporting you through that and saying, no, we're not going to do this, or we'll need to have a look at another way around, particularly in COVID times at the moment, where we are following very, very strict risk assessments. Your mentor should be an experienced class teacher. Now, you won't have any more than your 0.8 contact time, but it may not be your mentor who's sharing the class with you. Regardless, your mentor should be an experienced class teacher. They should have a good grasp on the children to be able to answer all of your questions and help you in supporting, forming your groupings, setting up your classroom, getting to grips with new hygiene measures that are in place, and just generally be there for you. EIS are also here when things go awry, but it's not always about when things go wrong. One of the best things about the EIS is the network that you can form. It's unfortunate this year that many of your meetings and courses will be done online, so you're not getting that same opportunity to network, to meet probationers in other schools, to find out how things are in other schools and work out, am I having a good experience here, to compare what's going on elsewhere. The EIS can also offer that. It gives you another opportunity to attend meetings like these. You've all come along tonight. Okay, we're not meeting face to face, but you're seeing names, you're hearing voices, you're having questions answered. The EIS also offers training, so it's a great source of CPD, and I couldn't count on my fingers how many courses I've been on through the EIS. you're very much within your own local authority as a probationer, but the EIS offers a more national picture as well. So you may have the opportunity to attend leadership training or training for particular groups of people. So I'm thinking LGBT, the training, there's all sorts of training offered. So it's not just about when things go wrong, it's also about how you can improve your skills as a class teacher, how you can improve your confidence as an individual, and then become more active. As Susan said, the EIS is run by members. It's not, there isn't someone at the top who has never been a teacher. Everyone who is part of the association has kind of come through the ranks. I started out as just a member who went along to a CPD event, and I heard Larry Flanagan speak, and I sat at a table beside more experienced activists, and we said, well, why don't you come along to this meeting? And now I've got a huge network of friends and colleagues that has benefited me in my career. Nothing I have done with the EIS has held me back in any which way, no matter what some head teachers will tell you, that being an active member is going to hamper your career. It certainly doesn't. All it does is enhance it, because you have got such a wealth of information that many of your colleagues don't get. You get opportunities to improve your public speaking. I know loads of teachers who are happy to speak in front of 30 children every single day, but walk into a room of adults and it's just not for them. The EIS and the opportunities available can help build that confidence. Also gives you the opportunities, as I've said before, for specific CPD. So yes, we are here to support you. Yes, and the people who are supporting you are people on the ground. They are still class teachers. They are working in schools. They are working every day and closely with local authorities. They know exactly what's going on and are able to give you that advice. But please remember as well that coming along to meetings, signing up for things like this, when things hopefully go back to normal, coming along to rallies and marches, and all local associations do open meetings. It's a great opportunity to network with people, to hear what's going on outside your own wee bubble, your own wee school, and to find out, are things going the way that you want them to, and to get the support if you need it, or to access more good stuff if that's what you're looking for as well. But just to reinforce what everyone else has said, you're not on your own. This can be the best year you've had, and don't sit quietly about it. Shout about the good stuff, and shout about, well, maybe not shout, but seek the support if you need it for the bad stuff.
Thanks, Megan. That was great. Now, we've had the three panelists speak. I should mention that the EIS website has a dedicated section to probationers. It includes quite a few resources, including an excellent booklet giving you information about the teacher induction scheme. As Megan pointed out, and our other panelists, the EIS offers many professional learning opportunities to new members, and it also gives specific courses, events to specific groups in the EIS. And so we will be offering a event later in the year specifically for early years teachers. Now, we do have questions coming in, and the first question I'm going to put to Megan in the first instance. It's quite a popular theme, and I'm having an issue with my school mentor. What should I do?
Okay. The first thing I would say then, I know every school's different, and it would really, I found personally there's a real split between primary and secondary, and just the general size of the school and how comfortable people feel. If you're having an issue with your mentor, the first instance I would say, if you feel comfortable going and speaking to your principal teacher, if it's not them, your deputy in the school or your head teacher, then do that first. The other thing you could do is contact your probation support team. Now, I can't comment on any other local authority. I can only have my experience from North Lanarkshire, but the probation support team in North Lanarkshire are highly professional and they're very, very good at supporting probationers. So getting in touch with them, explaining what the issues are, how you're feeling, and they will be able to advise you as well. Now, many people might think, oh, I don't want to do that, because the first thing they'll do is get in touch with the mentor. In my experience, that's not the case. Having supported a probationer in my capacity through the EIS with someone who was having trouble with a mentor in another school, and the probation support team were very much rallied around the probationer to find out what the issues were, and then made contact with the school, but not saying this probationer has an issue with this person. In a general, we're checking in, and our probationers were checking in to see how things are. They came to the school for a meeting. So if you're comfortable, speak to your management team first, explain what the issues are and see if they can help you. If not, then seek out your probation support team at your local authority. And then obviously the EIS are there as well to support you. You could get in touch with your rep if you have a rep and if you feel comfortable speaking to them, or your local association secretary.
And Andreen, I guess the question is, if the member, the probationer, can't sort out the problem at the school level, at what stage would somebody come to you as a local association secretary, and what could you offer them in terms of engagement with the local authority?
Well, I think it would come down to, I think there's two sides to it. There could be the issue that you don't personally get on with your mentor, or there's the issue that the mentor isn't providing the support that you actually require. I've had that situation where people have come to me because they've simply not been getting the weekly meetings, the dedicated weekly meetings that they should have been having with their mentor. That really is a problem. So what I can do is I can liaise with the probation support officer, as Megan outlined, on their behalf to try and find out a kind of way of sorting that out. What has happened in the past is I've gone along with probationers to meetings with the head teacher to provide representation and support. But generally with working with the probationer, so part of my job, as I probably should have said earlier on, is to actually have a very good relationship with the council and a very good relationship with people like the probationer support mentors, QIOs and so on, so that we can make sure that we get good solutions for members. So through working with the probationer support person and the head teacher, we've managed to resolve a lot of those situations. Sometimes it might be that the mentor needs to be changed, or the mentor hasn't simply realised the amount of support that person has needed. But yeah, through all of us working together, we usually try to find a solution.
Thanks, Andrew. Another question we've had is around the COVID situation in schools, and the question is saying that if what will happen to probationers if we either contract COVID or need to isolate, as our contracts say that we won't be paid if sick until after 18 weeks at the school. So the question is, if you're need to self-isolate as a probationer this week, next week, what are is there sick pay? And Susan, I wondered if you
yeah, no problem. So in terms of self-isolating with COVID, it isn't covered in absence. It's not classified as an absence under the absence policies. SNCT and the local negotiating groups are clear that nobody will be marked as being absent and covered by that. So you will receive pay if you're self-isolating and having to do that. If you're a parent who finds that their child is needing to self-isolate because of a situation with their school, or because they themselves are ill, then there should be some consideration within the local association and the local authority around paid family leave for that period of time. which potentially will go beyond what your normal paid family leave arrangement will be for this situation. But bearing in mind that there will probably be an expectation on the part of your employer that you will share the family leave with the other, hopefully, if there's another parent in the house, that it won't just fall on you to do all of the care during that self-isolation period for your child, because you won't always have to self-isolate alongside your child in these circumstances. So if you're having to self-isolate, you should be paid during that period. If you're having to look for family leave to care for your children because they're having to be off school, then there should be an extended period of paid family leave. But bear in mind, you can't be the only one in the house that's doing that.
Thank you, Susan. Great. So that's a very clear answer to that question. I should point out that the EIS is a Scottish trade union, so all our work is focused here in Scotland. Our executive committee looks at the Scottish-only issues, and therefore it's a union that's configured solely for the Scottish education system. Now, the next question we've had is, what kind of support could the EIS provide if a pupil harasses or assaults or verbally abuses a probationer teacher? And I thought that, Megan, if you could perhaps start that off, please.
Hi, sorry. So if that happens, you would want to speak to your mentor or your member of management in the school to find out what the procedure is. There should be a reporting procedure in the school. In the first instance, you want to be making sure, that you are safe and that you have called for help if it's necessary, depending on what the situation is. You may have to send a pupil to get a member of management to come round. But assuming that has been dealt with in the first instance, then you would be looking to see what the procedures are in the school for reporting violent incidents, because all violent incidents in the school should be reported. What you would also want to do, you should be having your weekly meetings with your mentor. Then you would want that on the agenda for the next meeting. You would want that noted, that it had happened, what had happened, how it had been dealt with, and then a discussion taking place as to how to minimise the risk of that happening again, what you should do should it happen again, the best way. And we would be talking about, depending on what it was, the best way to de-escalate any situations. But you want that discussed at a meeting, assuming that everyone is safe and you've got to that point.
Thanks, Megan. I got another question here.
David, sorry, can I add to Megan's answer to that one?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think there's a bit more beyond that. So I think once you've had the conversations within your mentor team and your SMT, you potentially also are going to need to have a conversation with your school rep to see what else can be done. If the school aren't able to support and aren't giving you that, or you feel that you're unable to push them for further support, then your EIS rep is your first point of contact. Or if there isn't one there, your local association secretary like Andreen or myself, where we can then provide you with the details around it. Megan's right. Things have to be recorded. Every school and every local authority should have a recording system for recording any incident of violence, whether it's physical or verbal, against anybody within the school. And you should get into the habit early in your career of using those recording systems and not being put off doing it by senior managers because they feel that somehow it reflects on them. And it's vital that that's done, because if it's not and it continues, then there will be a lack of evidence and then it will become problematic for you. So please make sure that early doors, don't wait. Some of these things, Megan's right, some of the things that are there, you need to speak up early. Don't wait until it's got so bad that it's making you ill and make sure that you're recording your evidence in the correct ways, using the protocols and things that are there, and make use of your EIS reps, whether it's in your school or in the local association.
Yeah.
Can I just add one last thing in? When Susan was speaking there, it reminded me, again, I can't comment on other local authorities, but in the Violent Incident Recording Forum for North Lanarkshire, there's a box on it to tick to say whether you're a trade union member and which trade union you're in. And all of the violent incident forums where our members tick that box are then reported to the local association, so we are able to track and see what's going on in schools as well. So please, as Susan says, get into the habit, if you have to fill these forms in. Don't be put off. And if management teams are saying, oh, I'll get it to you later, again, get that minuted down that you've asked for it, and don't let it rest. Get the form, and if there is a box on it to tick that you're a trade union member, please do tick that box.
Yeah, sorry, David. I was just going to say, just in the back of what Susan and Megan were both saying there, every local association should have their own LNCT policy or procedure on it. So you should check it out and make sure your school are following the procedures that are outlined there. Plus, on the EIS website, you'll find national advice on dealing with difficult and disruptive pupils in the classroom.
Well, thank you, all three. And I guess one of the first things that probationers should be doing when they get to the school and in the first few weeks now is to ensure that they know all the procedures in place, especially for incidents like that in the classroom. The other question that I have been issued with a cause for concern. I don't know why. Who should I speak to for support? And I wondered, Andreen, if you could take that first.
Yeah, that's something that's come to me quite often. I've got a cause for concern and I don't know why. Well, you should know why. So the bottom line is you should absolutely know why you're getting a cause for concern. It should never come out of the blue. So sometimes when that happens, that's because there's been a lack of communication between the mentor and the person and the probationer. And as I said earlier, sometimes that's really about having that liaison between the head teacher, the mentor, the probationer support person at the council, and try to unpick what has gone wrong there. Something has definitely gone wrong if you've been given a cause for concern and you don't know why, because all of it, Megan would be able to tell you about that. There should have been a whole process in place leading up to that point. But definitely, if you get to that point, get in touch with your rep. And I would probably say, well, I would like it in Eastern Bartonshire for you to contact me, so that I've got an overview of that happening, but it shouldn't be happening.
Thanks, Andreen. I've got a question
David,
here from Facebook. As a probationer on the flexible route, am I still going to receive invitations to local authority meetings? I'm not sure what a probationer who chooses the flexible route is entitled to participate. Susan, I wondered if you could step in.
Yeah, it will really depend on your local authority as to how much support they provide. You're not as entitled in the flexible route to the time out of school. So you're not going to have the reduced timetable that a probationer on the teacher induction scheme has. Some local authorities are very mindful of the requirement for support for our probation on the flexible route. So, for instance, Glasgow will generally put somebody who's on the flexible route against a pointage, so that the school has still got a wee bit extra staffing to allow the person to have the flexibility to release people to attend some additional training or to be provided with a bit more time. But there are no guarantees, and that's one of the major challenges for those who are on the flexible route. What I would do is make sure that your local authority, QIO or probation manager is aware that you're on the flexible route. They should be. That you're not just applying for supply work and going into schools and not making yourself known as being on the flexible route. Make sure that they know, and make sure that the head teacher knows as soon as you start on any fixed term contract, so that you can be provided with the additional support, and also that they can be doing the monitoring processes that are needed to ensure that at the end of your period of time in that school, that they're able to confidently write a report that can go towards the GTCS. Because what you don't want is a position where at the end of your, say you're going to a school to do a term's worth of work, you don't tell the head teacher that you're a probationer, they just believe you're a supply teacher, and then you come up to them in the last few days and say, could you possibly write a report for the GTCS for me? And they go, well, no, I can't, because I haven't done anything to give me, to allow me to do that. So please make sure that everybody's aware that if you're on the flexible route that you are, don't assume that people will know that. There's no guarantees around it. What you are entitled to do is have access to any of the kind of professional learning opportunities that other supply teachers, other temporary workers and other permanent workers within the authority have. And again, each local authority has their own systems for allowing people to access that. You are entitled as a supply teacher, flexible route or otherwise, to a professional review each year, and the opportunity to, because again, as a flexible route probationer, you may well choose to do this on a part-time basis, and it might take you 2 or 3 years. So what you don't want is to go without having your PRD each year, and you should again make sure that the probation manager within the local authority is aware of that, so that you can have that set up for you.
Thanks, Susan. I should mention, of course, that teaching is a highly unionised profession. The vast majority, almost all teachers are members of unions. And in Scotland, DIS is by far the largest teacher trade union. We offer probationers free membership. It's full membership. You get full rights as an EIS member, and that membership continues at a discounted rate into your first year of teaching afterwards. Now, my next question is, I think, something to do with COVID. There are issues with social distancing in my school, and I feel unsafe. What should I do? Andreen, I wondered if you could...
Yeah, definitely. As I said before, you should have had the risk assessment, so you should see exactly what the health and safety measures are that it should be undertaken in your school. Social distancing, you should be as much as possible 2 metres away from pupils at all times. So if that's not happening, and there are real breaches of that risk assessment and real breaches of the 2 metre rule, then your first person is your rep. So go to your rep and flag that up as soon as you can. If you don't have a rep, then I would go to one of your senior managers, PT, SMT member, head teacher. If you still don't feel you're getting anywhere, then definitely contact your LA secretary. But your rep is your first point of call in that, and don't delay and don't leave it, especially if you're feeling unsafe, and especially if you've got an underlying health condition. Go straight to your rep and flag it up as soon as possible.
Thanks, Andreen. My next question is, as a probationer, can my mentor or another senior manager in the school pop into my lessons and simply sit down and look at the lesson without telling me anything, without giving me notice or telling me what they're looking at? Megan?
Short answer, no. They can't. You have so many observations that need to be done. These are planned observations. There will be a mixture of your mentor and the senior management team. There will be so many need done before your interim profile in December, and then so many more needing done between your interim profile and your final profile. You might find that you are asked to schedule more observations if there is a cause for concern that we spoke about before, that you will know about, you'll be made aware of, and it'll be explained why there's going to be more observations there. But they're planned, they should be in the diary, agreed. I mean, for example, the observations for my probationer from now up until Christmas are already in the diary. We've agreed which curricular areas they're going to be. We've agreed when the head teacher one is going to be. You will need to provide a lesson plan in advance of it. It's the only time in your probation year that you'll be asked to do a version of the uni-style lesson plans. It won't have exactly the same amount of detail, but it gives your mentor or whoever's observing you an opportunity to look through, see what they're looking for. What you'll also have agreed is the standards for full registration that your mentor or head teacher is coming to observe. You'll have picked each standard, and that's what will be observed, and that's what will be recorded and commented on. Now, I'm not saying when your mentor's in doing an observation that they won't talk to you about other things and your feedback after you've evaluated the lesson yourself, but the actual things that are recorded will be based on the standards that have been chosen and agreed between yourselves. And it won't be a massive list. It might be 3 or 4 that you're going to be looking at, so that you get specific feedback based on these in a kind of strengths and next steps format. So bottom line, no, they can't just walk in and sit down. You may find that your mentor is coming and going in your class more, or they may say, I'm going to pop in, I want to sit with this group or that group, but these are not formal observations. These are just a mentor getting a feel for the class, particularly if they don't share the class with you. They need to get to know the children as well if they haven't taught them before. But these are not observations. They cannot be recorded as observations. So short answer is no. Your mentor or your head teacher might come and go from your class, but it should be in an informal, relaxed fashion. Your observations are all planned well in advance and with standards agreed, and discussed at a meeting afterwards where you get to evaluate the lesson and then they give you your feedback.
Good, thanks. I think that's very clear. In terms of another question we've had, I've been asked to do too much and I'm struggling to keep up. And I guess when things are getting on top of you, when's a good time to go and speak to your mentor, Andrea?
Well, you should be having weekly meetings. That's right, isn't it, Megan? Weekly meetings with your mentor. So that should be flagged up as soon as you can. You know, it's one of those situations. Don't sit on it. And there's lots of reasons for why you might be feeling a bit overwhelmed. You might be feeling a bit overwhelmed just because it's all so new to you. It's a big new job. You just need to kind of unpick that a little bit. It might be new. You might be feeling overwhelmed because of something personal that's going on in your life. That you really need to make sure that people understand that. So yeah, and it might be to do with the job. It might be to do with too much pressure being put on you from the school. So yeah, your mentor is your first person to chat with about that. And again, if you feel you're not getting anywhere with your mentor, then your rep's the next person you should really be chatting to. But definitely, you can't be. Don't leave it too long. Is what we're saying. You've got that opportunity every week. Make sure you use it.
Thanks, Andrea. We are planning to close the webinar around 7 o'clock, but we'll continue whilst we still have questions until about 7:15. I've got a few questions lined up from Facebook, but if anybody on the WebEx wants to ask questions, if you could put it down on the chat or even indicate if you want to ask the question over video. My next question is from WebEx. What happens if you are a probationer supply teacher doing day-to-day cover in different schools and you get sick with COVID-19 or are asked to self-isolate for a period? Will you still get sick pay even without having a contract? And I think, Susan, this is probably a follow-up to your earlier question. If you could look at that.
It should be exactly the same situation. At this point in time, it's unlikely that we will have very many supply teachers well, here's the first thing is I wouldn't expect that a probationer would be doing day-to-day supply. Anybody on the flexible route should be looking at getting contracts, that are going to allow the school to assess whether or not they are achieving the standard for full registration. So I can't envisage a position where you're going to be doing one day here and one day there as a supply teacher to do the flexible route. However, you've covered in terms of COVID and self-isolation, if you're due to be in a school and you then have to self-isolate, then you should be paid for the days that you were due to be in the school. If you are not working, if you're not due to work, so if you've got a supply contract that's saying you're working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and you self-isolate Thursday, Friday, then you're not going to be paid for Thursday, Friday, because those are not days that you were due to work. But I think there's an issue if you are trying to do your flexible route probation on casual supply and not looking at getting longer term contracts and that would be the issue for me generally for you, and you should be having a conversation with your local association secretary and the probation manager on that one.
Thanks, Susan. And I've got another question for you as well. In terms of the GTCS Code of Professionalism and Conduct, what should probationers know about that and about their sort of expectations as to their behaviour and conduct, both within the school and outside the school?
So within the school, you need to behave as a professional. You should be always mindful of the fact that you are a professional and you should be behaving as such. You can expect others to behave in a professional manner to you and behaving otherwise. Outside of school, you should be prepared to understand that people will know you are a teacher, and that if you get up to anything that might fall short of the standards for full registration or the code of conduct, that you could find yourself in trouble. Don't be posting stuff on Facebook that's inappropriate. Don't be. You'll have been told this, I'm quite certain, by your local authorities at the start of the year. Call your social media sites of those drunken weekends that might lead parents or otherwise to believe that you are anything other than the consummate professional that you should be. Clearly, we are entitled to a private life as a teacher in the same way as others, but we do have to be mindful of the perception of how things look to those outside. And one way to cover around that is to make sure that things like your Facebook pages, your Instagram, Snapchat, and all of the other ones, I don't know what they all are because I've stopped at Twitter, are as protected as you possibly can. Put locks on them. Do not accept invites to be friends with anybody that is related to your school. Please just don't be mindful of the fact that these are your colleagues at the moment. They're not your friends yet. They might become your friends, and then you might want to become their friends on social media, but at the very beginning they are your colleagues, and you don't know what they're going to take exception to that you post or otherwise. Similarly, please do not ever friend, ever, I can't say that enough, ever, any pupil and or parent. Please don't do the parents either. They're not your pals either. And because you don't know what rabbit hole their friendships are. So you friend them, they friend you, then you're pals with their friends because their friends can see your friends, and then you don't know who's seeing what. Protect yourself as much as you possibly can. And that's not just about being in your probationary year. That goes for everybody. Everybody has to be really mindful of that kind of thing. And At this point in time, if you're in Glasgow, East Wren or Western Bartonshire, don't be seen hanging about with your pals at the wrong time. Make sure that you are following the rules. It's just really important that you don't put yourself in a vulnerable position. Don't give anybody an opportunity to question what you've done, because whilst it might be quite innocent, it might be quite straightforward, you don't want to be put into the vulnerable position of somebody accusing you of something that would be deemed to be inappropriate. Just going to know that's just don't.
Thanks, Susan. That's very good advice, especially about the social media and all those things that, unfortunately, members and probationers do get into trouble, not infrequently, sadly. Final question. I'm a primary school probationer, and I've been given 4 classes to teach. Is that allowed?
So it kind of depends. Are you primary or secondary?
I'm a primary probationer, and I'm given 4 classes to teach.
No, it's absolutely not. That should not be happening, and that that shouldn't be happening. No, absolutely not.
And so you're focusing most of your classroom. You should have 1 classroom, as I understand it, as a primary school teacher in the main.
1 class where you will be for 0.8 of the time, and somebody else within the staff will work alongside you as the teacher for the other part of the week. And then as the year goes on and you grow in confidence and things are working well, then you might get to Christmas and then beyond Easter, where you decide that you want to take over and be solely responsible for the class. But as a probationer teacher, you shouldn't be the person that's doing the non-contact time for other people or being split across a variety of classes.
Good.
Can I add just one other wee thing in there? Obviously, totally agree with Susan, but something else popped into my head. Now, as Susan said, as you go beyond Christmas and into Easter, you may feel confident and you may want to take your class on a bit more. If that's the case and it's your choice, then you would never go over your 22.5 hours class contact time. You would revert to the standard non-class contact time for a full-time teacher. But also, you cannot be asked to increase your time until after your final profile has been signed off, which is usually around about the beginning of June. So if you feel comfortable and you feel confident, you can ask, and if the school deems it's appropriate for you to, that you can increase it a wee bit, but you cannot be asked to go to the full 22.5 hours until after your GTC profile is in.
Okay, that's excellent. We don't have any more questions, and it's just after 7 o'clock. I'd first like to thank our 3 panelists, Susan, Megan, and Andreen, for answering all our questions and giving very good advice to probationers. I would then also like to thank all the EIS staff. It's me in front of the camera, but there's a team of colleagues behind the camera and of monitoring the chat and set this whole event up within the EIS. I'm grateful for their help and support. I'm also grateful to you spending your time here as probationers. I hope that you got the flavour of the complexity of your year ahead, but also of the support and advice that's available from the EIS, and that we work on several different layers, from the school rep, the local association rep, to national representatives. And we've got a very deep engagement in all parts of Scottish education, and we will support members as you go through your career, both with casework when things go badly, but also with general professional learning and development, is to ensure that you become the teacher that you want to become, that you can become. Now, before I say goodbye, the EIS website is a source of a lot of support on all aspects. There's some specific things there for probationers, but there are other parts of the website that offer support. It's also got links to your local association secretary if you don't know who they already are. And I would encourage you to get to know your EIS school rep within your school if you haven't done so already, okay? That, again, is another key relationship for you as well as your mentor. Thank you very much, and good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.